Fathers matter. You really don't want to miss this one.
Next mission, team now.
What's shaking, Warfighter Nation? Happy Father's Day 2022 from all of us here at Warfighter Ranch, Warfighter Ranch Chapel, Isaiah 6:8, Team Warfighter, and Team Breland. Green light, go. So let's just jump right in, shall we? A New York Times columnist, Natalie Angier, once wrote the following statement: "Women may not find this surprising, but one of the most persistent and frustrating problems in evolutionary biology is the male. Specifically, where did he come from, and why doesn't he just go away?" You know, I hear things like this, and I just have to imagine that the majority of the Warfighter Nation is just laughing at these people. And I would say the same thing any time of day, so I'll share it with you now. In case anyone was curious, I will now share with you the story of our glorious creation. Then the Lord God formed the man out of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature. And the Lord God planted a garden of Eden in the east, and there he put man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord God made spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper fit for him." Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him. But the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, he took one of the man's ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed." That's from Genesis 2. And you know, it's funny, I was sitting here all these years thinking it's because I looked at my wife for the first time and said, "Whoa, man!" See what I did there? The Bible, among other things, is chock full of examples, and not just any examples, but extreme examples. Ladies first. Now, you might be asking yourself, "Ron, why would you be giving an example about a woman on Father's Day?" Well, hang in there, high speed, and we'll get there soon. Please hold all questions until the end. This portion is from Exodus 2, verses 1 through 10. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she took for him a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the riverbank. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her young woman walked beside her. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman, and she took it. When she opened it and she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him, saying, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, because, she said, "I drew him out of the water." Okay, tactical time out here. In my travels, I have been blessed to have seen with my own two eyes the Nile River. And I can tell you right now, it is the last place you want to put a baby anywhere near. Yes, even in the reeds, anywhere near that water. Why, you ask? Glad you asked. Here's my top 10 reasons why you should never leave a baby, even in the shallows of the Nile River. Can't believe I have to make this list. The black mamba, the most poisonous snake on the planet, roams the banks of the Nile River. Nile crocodiles. No biggie there. It's the animal with the strongest bite strength in the animal kingdom, and if they're not in the water, they're on the banks of the Nile River. The Egyptian cobra. A single bite from this nasty little critter will shut down your entire respiratory system and you'll be dead in 15 minutes. Hippos. Are you serious? Yes, hippos. These chubby little buggers from the Egyptian Fat Boy program are capable of biting a human in half with the strength of their bite. I don't even want to know how they know that. On the lesser end of things, the African rock python. Not like that couldn't eat a baby. Ah, yes, the ever-popular mosquitoes, full of malaria and all sorts of other things. And then the government gives you mefloquine, and, well, you know. The Goliath African tigerfish. Okay, I love to go fishing as much as the next guy, but no. The Nile monitor lizard. Are you kidding me? Now Godzilla showed up? Who wants to live here? The voodoo catfish. All you need to know about this one is that it's huge, nasty, aggressive, and more than capable of swallowing a baby whole. And last but not least, this one's actually on my bucket list, the Nile perch. This aggressive fish looks something like a giant largemouth bass, but this bucket mouth is more than capable of swallowing a small child. Sadly, it would not be the first time. Now, I mentioned this top 10 list of reasons why you shouldn't leave a baby next to the Nile River for a reason. It's to express the amount of desperation and faith and hope that Moses' mother, Jochebed, had to have. She had to harness that fear, and these reeds were basically papyrus with pitch over it, very little waterproofing. And somehow it was barely enough, and God made it so. He commanded all those creatures to leave the child alone. He commanded the waters to not carry the child away. I think all of this gets lost in this story, but the faith of this mother in letting her child go because he would have a better opportunity, a better life. And you know how that turned out. Sometimes as parents, we see things through a different lens than we did when we were younger, and it gives us great perspective. This next story is about a father and his son, the story of his love for his son and his obedience to his God. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham," and he said, "Here I am." He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay there with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you." Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, his son. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together, and Isaac said to his father Abraham, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." He said, "Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." So they went off together. When they came to the place which God had told him, Abraham built the altar. There he laid the wood in order and bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out in his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. The story of Abraham and Isaac is an incredible testimony of faith, love, and obedience. But I gotta think that Abraham had a dad joke to end all dad jokes for the rest of his life. He's just sitting there like on Friday afternoon or something saying, "Hey son, you wanna go camping?" Too soon? On the plus side, we do the best we can. But as parents, yes, we can and do make mistakes. Yet we learn from them, correct them, and thus lead by example. We try. And when we do fall, it's okay, because as we read from the wisest man in history, Proverbs 24:16 tells us, "For the righteous falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in times of calamity." If I've learned anything as a father, it's that many generations blame the one before, but that's never really taught us that much. Sometimes you can only move forward by learning from the lessons of the past. And I'll land this plane here with one final story. There was once a woman in a very troubled marriage. Her husband was an abusive alcoholic and beat her oldest child unmercifully. This went on for years, until one day she was out of town on business, and the man kicked her son out on the street to be homeless. The child, now alone in the world, wound up at a homeless shelter. A week or so later, contact was made, and the mother had brought in a pair of pants, a button-down shirt, and the child's social security card. Over the years, the child, now a man, became angrier and angrier in his feelings of abandonment. Years later, a woman and children would find their way into his life. The army would take him all over the world, showing him things that few men had ever seen, and yet other things that no man should ever see. He learned that being a parent isn't as easy as it looks. No two children are alike, and that it is of vital importance in raising the children to be present. And perhaps the most valuable lesson I learned after all those years is that when she dropped off my clothes and social security card off at the shelter all those years ago, she wasn't ushering me out of her life. She had the faith of Moses' mother, Jochebed, in letting me go, as it was better than the alternative. What incredible faith. I love you, Mom. And so on this Father's Day, well, my earthly Father in heaven now, he knows how I feel. I'd also like to thank my mom for giving me life, my wife for joyfully giving our children life, and God the Father for breathing life into all of it. And just remember, dads, good, bad, or indifferent, you matter.
And I heard you Who will go for us? Here am I. Send me.
We're cleared hot at this time.
Smoke Vet 6. This is Smoke Jumper 7. Roger that. Next mission, time now.